And hi everyone, welcome to Life Edge, because life just doesn't have to be mediocre. I am joined today by my good friend coming to us from Oklahoma today. I think. You're in Oklahoma, right?
Still here.
Still here. I never know who's traveling anymore. Anyway, coming to us from Oklahoma, Dr. Susan Nash. Hi, Susan.
Hi, it's great to be here, and we have a great guest.
We do. I think this is his third or fourth visit, our favorite economist. Here we go. Yep. We've got Dr. Ed Stuart on again. Let's go.
This show is sponsored by Relate Corporation. Digital learning development, media development, corporate video, management consulting, and more. Visit us at www.relate.com. Thanks.
And we are back, and in that center position of power, we've got Dr. Ed Stuart. How are you, Ed?
Fantastic. Nice to see you, Rick, and even nicer to see Susan. She's much better looking than we are, so what can I say?
True. That's true. That's true. We'll just focus on you, Susan, today. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a pleasure to see you again. You know, we didn't have a guest for this week, and we were thinking, we haven't talked to you in ages. It's been too long, and you agreed to come on quickly. So thank you so much for that. And by the way, if you ever want to come on for any reason, just call, because
all right, we'll do.
We cycle through guests, but we sometimes don't have enough guests, or we have too many guests, and then we don't cycle back to people we want to cycle to. So you're always welcome. Always give a call. You can come back anytime. It's our pleasure.
Right. One of the things I like about this is that conversations with you and Susan seem to go by so fast. The hour just seems to fly by, and we always have probably 3 or 4 more hours of conversation that we could get to that we just can't get to because of the time constraints. So
I know, and with all this lockdown and everything, we can't even fly out to Chicago, or nobody can fly anywhere. So, or you can fly, but it's not that much fun right now, from what I heard. I have some friends that fly a lot, and they're going, it's just miserable. One of them I know, he's a sales guy who travels everywhere, and he's got to wear a mask on a plane. He goes, I can't do it, I'm dying. So he's putting his mask on his chin, because he goes, I am dying on this plane. So I don't want to fly with a mask on. It's bad enough with the dry air. With the mask, it's like torture. I can't see that on a plane. But so how have you been? What have you been doing? You've got a class, you were telling us pre-show, in Salzburg.
I'm here in Chicago, in Lincoln Park, in my office second bedroom, and I'm supposed to be in Salzburg, Austria, but obviously since you can't fly and can't travel, I'm doing the class online remotely. And my students are in Salzburg, and I'm here in Chicago, but through the magic of remote video and audio, and I'm managing to carry on a class. Fortunately, the students are really good. They're very bright, and they're also much more technologically proficient than I am. So when the usual glitches show up, they can fix them pretty quickly. So that's a nice thing. And it's also because in this current generation of students, they do almost everything on their phone, right? They really don't have laptops or even pads anymore. They just have their phone, and so I'm here in my little home office lecturing, and one of the students today, Tim, was on a basketball court in the middle of the Alps, and Shane was walking through town looking for a tuxedo because he's going to a wedding in Vienna. So
funny.
I'm glad they're living their lives and so forth, but it makes me very jealous that I'm stuck here. I'm not wandering, climbing the Alps and climb every mountain in Salzburg, and I'm not getting to go to nice Viennese weddings where I'm sure the champagne will be good, the apple strudel for dessert will be fantastic, and the coffee will be magnificent as well. So,
by the way,
I got caught in one of those things too. I was supposed to teach in Spain, And I was
Oh,
supposed to go on March 15th. Well, you can imagine how that didn't
uh,
happen. But
yeah,
if it had been 1 week before, I probably would have been able
yeah,
to.
right. Yeah.
Interesting. Now,
Well,
speaking
these
of
are,
coffee, you made a
Susan, these
comment
are
about.
American students, and they began their semester in Salzburg in January. So, fortunately or unfortunately, they got stuck in Salzburg, right? So,
Now, what are you
uh,
teaching them?
pardon?
What are you teaching them?
Right now, I'm teaching principles of microeconomics. This
Okay.
is the second session. We started with principles of macro
Mm-hmm.
in May. So we're going through the two principles courses right now. Yeah.
That's
Okay,
good.
so I have a burning question for you. And I'm so
Uh-oh.
glad that you're the guest today. And of course, it has to do with revolting aspects of pandemics and plagues and all that. But, okay, let's say we get through all the revolting things. What do you see as the places where we will see growth? I mean, besides things like personal protective equipment and masks. And where do you see real growth in the economy?
Well, what we're doing now, and when I go out to run in the morning, I end up in the little park right across from my apartment, and I run into see various neighbors, always 2 feet apart, or 6 feet apart, 2 meters, right? And there are a lot of them. Susan, today there was a person who was an attorney, and she said that most of what she's going to do, even after the pandemic, is via video. She's not going to go into her office nearly as much as she used to. So all of the infrastructure, all of the software, all of the equipment that manages video communication, whatever platform it uses, I think that's going to be a kind of a revelation after this is over with. And obviously, all kinds of delivery services. I don't think for a long time, Rick doesn't want to go on an airplane. I don't want to go on an airplane. I'm not really crazy about going into a restaurant either, or especially a crowded restaurant. So all the delivery companies, Grubhub just got bought by somebody today.
Oh, they did?
Yes, for
Instacart.
seven or eight
Yeah,
billion dollars.
I use Instacart.
7 or 8 billion?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, right.
Wow. We use Grubhub
the
here.
young Chinese
wow.
American guy that started Zoom a few years ago, he's now worth $10 billion.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other things are, I think this has brought up the need for more medical research, more healthcare facilities. One of the kind of deficits of the American society, the American healthcare system, compared to, say, Germany, is we have so fewer hospital beds per person than they do in civilized countries like Germany, that I think hospital construction will be one of the growth industries as well. And I would stay away from commercial real estate, right? I would stay away from oil. I would stay away from airlines, right? And
Cruise ships.
cruise ships, yeah, exactly. I've been on one cruise in my entire life several years ago. I won't name the cruise line. It wasn't bad, but even back then, it just was not that pleasant of an experience. And I can't see a sane person going on a cruise in the next 5 or 10 years. So those are the things I would stay away from. And anything that's technology, communication, healthcare, pharmaceutical research. I will name names. I do a lot of consulting for AbbVie and Abbott Labs. Their headquarters are here in Chicago. And I think that's probably any kind of big pharma is a safe bet for sectors that are going to do well.
That's
I
interesting.
was at a go ahead.
No,
I was at a
I was just
workshop
going to.
last night. It was really interesting. We had a guy from Shell who's the director of the technology for deep water. He was talking about how smart manufacturing and materials science have really been sort of the magic formula, marriage made in heaven, as he put it. And then we had the general director of Xerox, 3D printing, and also the founder of Women in 3D Printing. And there was like all kinds of enthusiasm over the way that the supply chain is being made more resilient through 3D printing.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting to think also about the additives. Like, so it's metal 3D printing that has huge potential, and not just kind of like making your own toys. So I said, okay, let's say I want to be creative, and I want to work with a builder, and we want to have like knobs and cabinet pulls and doorknob, like anything with the shape of like a horse's head or even a pig's head. I could do that.
Well, you know what else they're using the 3D printing for is to make parts for things that you can't easily get from China right now or whatever else. So they're making replacement parts for computers, for equipment, things that you just can't find now. And so that's a clever use of the technology, and it's cheaper in some respects than having to go overseas and bring it back. So that's some things that are coming up right now. But I was going to make a comment when Ed made a comment about coffee in Austria. And there's a brand that we've been drinking now for about 3 years. We had it in Fort Lauderdale in a place called Spazio's. It was like, we asked for an espresso, and it was like, oh my God, this is the best espresso ever. And it's from Austria. It was Julius Meinl. You know Meinl.
I know the Meinls quite well.
Meinl's incredible. You're the only other person I know in the States that knows about it. It is incredible coffee.
It's a privately, we'll do a big commercial for my friends, my friend Thomas Meinl, who's the 6th generation. His son Tom is now basically running the company. It was founded in 1862. Yeah. It's a privately held company. And mostly what they do in Europe is they're wholesalers. So cafes in Vienna and Salzburg have Meinl. They serve Meinl coffee. And they do the same things more or less here in the United States. Except in Chicago, there is a Julius Meinl cafe that was opened in 2002. And that's how I got involved, because one of my former students in Austria was the American partner of the Meinl, so they brought me on board to help open the cafe here in Chicago, and so I've been working with the Meinls ever since. Last May, when I was teaching in Salzburg, I had a weekend where I went to Vienna and went to the headquarters of Julius Meinl, their roasting plant and administrative offices, and just had they're lovely people. They're a classic European firm. It's privately, only the family owns it. They have no stockholders. They have no debt. They never borrow any money. They just, and they have very minimal growth objectives. Tom, who's the 7th generation, says, I only want to have the company grow at 2 or 3%, because if it grows faster than that, what are my kids going to do when they take over? So it's a quite an interesting story, and one of the real benefits, Rick, if we're ever in Vienna together, Rick, I will take you there. And one of the real benefits is they'll make you coffee right there. Oh, wow.
It is delicious coffee. And I'm not a coffee drinker, but I love their coffee.
So here's a question, though. Like, how are they impacted by the extreme uncertainty that we are seeing right now?
You know, they don't seem to be. I'll tell you, we can order from them right now, and in about 3 days, it will show up here. We order direct from Vienna.
That was Thomas, the 6th generation. Thomas is now in his 70s, maybe late 70s. But one of the things he did about 15 years ago was create an online marketing division of Julius Meinl. So anywhere you are in the world, you can get it delivered fairly quickly.
Within a week.
Via air and so forth. So their wholesale business in Europe is a little bit down because people aren't going to cafes, but their online business has increased quite substantially for what Rick just pointed out. They're doing a lot more sales online because people need. I mean, I have to have coffee. And oh, wait a minute! I'll reach over here. I have a prop. Right here is my Julius Meinl.
There you
cup,
go.
Right, you can see the little,
there you go.
Little Moorish boy. Right, that is their trademark. So coffee is one of those necessities. Now, one of the things that's true, you can't buy stock in Julius Meinl, but I do have stock in Starbucks. And there was an article, I think in the Financial Times yesterday or the day before, about the long-term positive prospects for Nestle and Starbucks. Because what will happen in the United States especially is a lot of these mom and pop and startup one-spot coffee places are either out of business or they're going to be out of business soon. So what's going to take their place? What's going to take their place is Nespresso from Nestle and Starbucks, right?
Interesting.
So, although everything got beaten up today, I thought Rick was gonna introduce me and say, we asked Ed to be on the show, and as soon as he agreed, the stock market crashed by more than 5%. But
I didn't hear that today. So the market crashed today 5. Yesterday was at 27,000, and I went, wow, it's doing really well. And then, okay.
Yeah. And my Starbucks stock was down almost $6 a share.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah, but
it's to be expected though. Volatility.
As I tell my students, you should only look at the stock market like once every 2 or 3 months. Otherwise, you're just needlessly worrying about things.
Yeah. That's interesting. Well, I didn't know you knew them. Would you ever talk to the Meinls? Tell them they have major fans in California.
Good. Yeah.
We usually buy about
they're
4 pounds.
Very insistent on quality. They are. Very high quality operation.
I think we get the is it called El Moro? I can't remember.
Your sound is cutting out, Rick.
Oh, am I cutting out?
Yeah.
I think it's the El Moro one that we get, and it is so good as espresso. We have a Krups automatic machine that does everything, and that thing it tastes so good. And when we order either 4 to 8 pounds at once. They don't even charge you for shipping. They said because of the crisis, we won't charge shipping, and they FedEx it. Yeah. They're amazing.
Well,
yeah,
they have
practically an entire FedEx plane that leaves from the Vienna airport every day.
Really? Wow.
Flying coffee to their wholesale people and to all of their online customers in North America.
Yeah.
So
what were you saying,
lots
Susan?
Of flavors?
They have a lot of flavors.
Yes, right. Okay. And they also have tea, right? They do very good.
I haven't tried their
teas. Tea assortments. Yeah.
The teas are probably good too.
Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So I got during the extreme lockdown.
Yep.
I got kind of hooked on instant cappuccino, and so I started thinking, why am I gaining so much weight? So I had to let myself run out of it and not buy anymore. It says black coffee for Susan now.
Oh, that's funny.
Actually, Susan, that's one of the occupational hazards I deal with when I'm actually teaching in Austria. Is that the strudel comes with whipped cream, and since it's in Europe, it's real sugar and real cinnamon, and the whipped cream is not a petroleum byproduct. It is heavy cream, and
it's not ready whipped.
No, it's not ready whipped, and that usually comes after my Wiener Schnitzel and potatoes, and I'm making myself hungry. We should talk about something else. But,
That's right. Time to hop a plane.
And actually, that brings me back to another suggestion for Susan's investment club, grocery stores. I think the restaurant business is going to be bad for a long time just because of fear and anxiety, and especially big chain restaurants that can deliver. I think they're going to do well for a long time.
You know, Ed, have you been to a restaurant since they started reopening some of them?
No, I have not.
We went last Saturday for the first time to, I think it's called BJ's Restaurant and Brew House. It's a bar and grill. It's not bad. They're a big chain out here. I don't know if they're countrywide, but they're pretty.
Yeah, there's one here.
There is one. I think they may be countrywide.
Yeah.
And you know, it was the most disgusting feeling going there. When you walk in, all the sofas are gone. You can't sit anywhere. And then you have to wait to be seated because they have to put the table just so 6 feet from everyone else. Then all the waitresses look like they've just had surgery with their masks on. They look in their gloves.
Right.
I hated it. I absolutely hate it. I go, screw it. I'm not going to go back to a restaurant until they finally open. This is stupid. And it was disgusting.
I don't know, though. I've had the opposite experience. My favorite restaurant opened back up. And anyway, so they have they're in a really pretty little mall area, and it's not a mall. It's like one of those outdoor shopping things, and it has lots of trees and big sidewalks. And the store that was next to them went out of business, so they have the sidewalk in front of that. So they put a lot of outdoor tables, and they're far apart from each other, and the trees are shading, and lots of little birds, and it's like so relaxing. So I've gone there pretty often, eating outside. Okay. And I'm pretty much the only one there.
One of the things they're doing in Chicago, they haven't done it yet, but I think at least some places are going to start tomorrow. They're actually closing streets in Chicago and letting the restaurants set up tables in the street, right?
Interesting.
Closing it to traffic. So that may be...
That's a good idea.
Maybe, yeah. Although... I'm with you, Rick. I'm kind of old school. I like to be in a restaurant with nice chairs and nice tables and tablecloths. And since I was born in Texas, right, I want to talk to the waiters and waitresses and, whatever. And use real silverware and have the menu in, not disposable or what. So. Yeah,
I was surprised. They gave us these little paper. I was going, what happened to that?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. We're all going to die, sure.
So I wouldn't put a lot of hope in restaurant chains or restaurant supply companies or whatever. I'd put it, if I had money to spare money, I'd put it in grocery store stocks in Albertsons or Kroger or something like that.
Yeah, they're doing pretty well, and I know where we are. They're very well stocked.
Right, right.
For about a week, a week or two, I don't know what this toilet thing was. I still can't figure out the toilet paper thing. Why is that the only thing leaving the shelf? There's some strange fetish going on with toilet tissue. But anyway, you couldn't find any paper goods.
Yeah.
Now it's back. Now you can get anything.
I think when that was going on, Rick, my Austrian side was going that an economist can't explain that phenomenon, but a Freudian psychiatrist could explain the fetish of toilet paper and toilet paper.
I don't even want to know.
We won't go anywhere farther with that. But yeah, it had nothing to do with economics or supply chain or anything like that. That was probably the most Freudian aspect of the whole
irrational panic.
Yeah.
Too funny.
And I don't know if you have it out there in California or you see it, Susan, in Oklahoma, but in Chicago we now have commercials on television and radio from Charmin assuring us that they're working around the clock and they're always going to be Charmin for you and you don't need to worry about it.
So you can keep squeezing it, right? Okay, got it.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
That's funny. I've never seen those.
Back, but I think so they have some nice young lady in very soft tones. Reassuring people that there will be Charmin for them when they go to the store.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I keep wanting to be optimistic that once we kind of get over this, that we'll be able to get back to work, etc. But I'm worried about this fall, and like we're talking about places that will be impacted. How about the sports? People who live and die by sports and festivals.
Right. Yeah. In Chicago, that's a big thing, Susan, because just yesterday they canceled Lollapalooza, which is a huge money maker here in Chicago. The Cubs and the White Sox aren't playing. There's the summer home of the Chicago Symphony, Ravinia, which is north of Chicago in Highland Park, which goes from May and through September. Every night there's either classical music or some kind of popular music, and it's a huge institution and moneymaker. And the Blues Fest and the Gospel Fest and the Taste of Chicago. And Chicago also is a big convention city, the radiologist convention.
Mm-hmm.
Who knew there were 20,000 radiologists that would show up in a city and convene for a week and, compare x-rays? I'm not sure what they do, but they have a lot of money, and they spend money on nice hotels and nice restaurants. And so that's
they're very transparent. Yeah.
And that's not, I don't think that's coming back.
Absolutely. And those are going to be really long-term effects. Like I was thinking last year, I was thinking, wow, I've noticed that the small communities that have revitalized, generally speaking, start by revitalizing a downtown and making it really cute. Then they try to attract festivals and activities. And then when they get really good, they have a few conferences and conventions. And that's been their revitalization plan. Nothing having to do with manufacturing, nothing having to do, it's all been kind of services and a kind of entertainment type of service or travel. And we just don't have a diversified economy.
Yeah, you just hit on something. Yesterday, as part of my class to Salzburg, I had a friend of mine who works in the Salzburg city administration, and he was saying how bad this is, because Salzburg, 60% of their total sales in Salzburg are tourism, and they have no tourism now. And he said one of the things they kind of have realized, shockingly, is that they have no plan B. So what happens if there's no tourism? They don't have any other industries or sectors that can take up at least some of the slack. So areas of the country that rely on tourism for a large part of their employment and tax revenue and so forth, we're going to have to do a lot of rethinking.
Oh, yeah.
Well, look what's happening to...
It lasts for years.
Well, you were mentioning,
in really bad shape.
Susan, look what's happening to things like the Disney parks, the Universal Studios. Or they're not doing well at all. And they're not, I don't even know when some of them are going to open. They're talking about end of July, August, maybe even September. They're not planning any earlier. So they're missing the whole tourist season of summer.
Yeah. And those are places where half the fun is being packed in a ride or in Magic Mountain or bumping into everybody in the teacups and so forth. So what kind of an experience is that going to be if they can only open at 25% or
I know
a fraction of their usual audience?
Yeah, so even if we try to diversify as an economy, it's not easy because we don't really have the structure to do so. And we have to kind of look at what are the fundamental drivers and made it all the more obvious that it's not just the amount of money that flows into a country or it's the rate of circulation that and you probably have been talking to your students about this in macro about that.
Probably to put an optimistic slant on this, maybe 10 years from now, I hope and I think, well, at least there's an opportunity that most economies, including the American economy, will be more diversified, more resilient. Rick already brought this up. He made a good point that instead of having one supply chain for masks or pharmaceutical elements, there'll be 2 or 3 supply chains. So there'll be some kind of redundant systems built into the economy. And also, maybe instead of having one beef packing plant in Iowa that slaughters beef for the entire country, we'll have 15 or 20. And so when one of them goes down for whatever reason, the entire meat supply or pork supply doesn't suddenly just vanish for weeks on end.
Well, that's an interesting point because doesn't Chicago or the Chicago area have some of the best meat in the country also?
No, not anymore.
Not anymore.
It comes from Iowa, right, where the slaughterhouse is, and it's just one, right?
Because Chicago used to have some great. I remember being in Texas. Get this, I was in Dallas. There's a place called Chamberlain's, which is wonderful, and their beef all came from Chicago. It was incredible. It was so good. Right. So they don't have that anymore.
No. And there are only one or two beef packing companies, and they have one big plant for beef and one big plant for pork, and that's it. And when the people get sick or whatever, then that's it. So,
I think there are different tiers because there's Swift, and they have things in like Dumas, Texas, and there are others dotted around, and like there's in Texas Panhandle.
I don't think they're there anymore. I don't think Swift exists anymore.
They are because they're getting sick there.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, they're not. But I guess my point is that they're also part of that massive, kind of just that massive complex. And it makes us rethink things like economies of scale, that how new technologies actually can change the economies of scale and make smaller places more efficient. And it also makes you rethink competitive advantage, and that innovation creates a kind of competitive advantage. It's not just having proximity to the supply or whatever.
Yeah, and we were actually talking about economies of scale this morning, and one of the things that needs to be redone in the American economy is a much more vigorous antitrust and demonopolization of the food industry, the airline industry, the cell phone industry, the pharmaceutical industry, banking.
Isn't it funny, Ed, because all those were deregulated and split up, and now they're all back together.
Yeah, now they're all back together because
AT&T, remember they got all split up. GTE, which is now Verizon, they got split up, and now they're just as big as they were before.
Right.
It's just how'd that happen?
And the airlines got deregulated, and there are all kinds of new airlines, and now there's three, right? For all intents and purposes. And so that's another thing I'm talking about in microeconomics is the advantages of competition and more competing firms as opposed to one or two large firms that dominate the industry.
Now I have a theory.
And there's only one corporation in America that makes ventilators, and they bought up 3 or 4 smaller competitors. So and they had shut down for some reason in January or something like that, their ventilator production, and that's one of the reasons we were short, right? And had to go other places, is that there wasn't a redundant supply and there wasn't a competitive industry.
But I have a theory that the gun manufacturers and the Democrats are actually in cahoots, because every time something happens in the country, guns are sold. I think in the last 2 weeks we've sold 2.5 million more guns. It's like every time there's some issue, and I'm sure somebody's getting kickback on that. It just has to be. It's just every single time gun sales. I don't know how many guns are in people's houses anymore. It's just like, wow, what are you going to do? I have an ex-son-in-law who bought something like 25 rifles and guns, and I was going, and why?
What?
And he goes, yeah. I go, and why? And he goes, because if the man ever comes, I'm ready for him. I'm like, okay. So he shows me his house. This is years ago. And he shows me the house, and he goes, I got guns here. I got guns in that window. I got guns over there. I'm ready. I'm ready for any attack. And I go, ceiling? And he looks up, and I go, how are you going to block the gas canisters when they come in? And he went,
it reminds me of the old Dick Gregory joke. If you got guns in your house, you better make sure your wife likes you, because the first time you step out of line.
That is so true. Yeah, my wife the other day was saying, I want to learn to shoot. I go, no. No, but I want a gun. I go, no.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I don't trust her. It's just so, she goes, I'll be safe.
The gun madness is everywhere. Even my sister goes, I need to get a gun. I need to get a gun. And I go, well, you have Uli. That's her German Shepherd. And she goes, Uli can't. And she goes, and Susan, we need to go into selling and buying and selling guns for it to make money.
You would make money.
No.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
but
Susan, gun madness is everywhere in the United States.
Yes.
We're the you can walk into Walmart and come out better armed than the third division of the Bundeswehr in Germany.
Gosh,
right?
I believe it.
I
Yeah.
had English guys that I was playing tennis with here in Chicago, and they had been in the British Army, and they said they were amazed at how easy it was to get a gun. They said they could walk into Walmart and with less identification and less paperwork than when they were in the British Army to go get a weapon, right? That they had to fill out a lot more paperwork as a British soldier to get a weapon from their quartermaster. And they said it's just kind of amazing. And I said, yeah, welcome to America.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it was funny. I was reading the news the other day, and there were these two big Mercedes Antifa vans. They were these up in, I guess they came from Seattle, maybe, somewhere around Washington State, and they went into Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Now, Coeur d'Alene is like militia central. It's like they
Northern
have
Idaho. My mother
Ruby
lives in
Ridge.
Spokane.
in Spokane. Okay, so yes, but just across the border.
Right.
And so these idiots show up in these two vans, and they were met by 1,000 militia members armed to the hilt.
Yeah.
They were carrying,
That's so-
there were more AR-15s that were reported, more handguns, auto guns, you name it. And they had the guys, these Antifa creeps, had them on the floors with all the, give me the baseball bats, give me this, give me that. And they had them all just on the floor looking depressed. And then they just put them back in the vans and sent them home. And I was going, 1,000 people just mobilized in minutes. And you go, wow. I don't think...
Northern Idaho is pretty, it's pretty scary up there.
How's this
right?
going? Yeah.
You don't want to
Well-
go north of Coeur d'Alene, let me put it that way, right?
Is that even worse up there?
Coeur d'Alene is very nice, right?
Yes,
But
yeah.
once you get a little bit north up in the foothills of the
Salzburg.
Rockies and the Selkirk Mountains,
Yeah.
it gets a little bit like the backwoods of Tennessee.
Oh,
right?
yeah, deliverance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
I have a
gosh.
question. Okay, so I spent some time, when I was growing up, with my dad is a geologist, and so he had a prospect in the Sawtooth Wilderness area. That was in Idaho, and it was beautiful. But then there was Coeur d'Alene, and that's all, silver, used to be silver mining area. And then there was when you were talking about militias, do you remember Ruby Ridge?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever happened to them?
I don't know.
I don't know either. Yeah, I have no clue as to. I'm sure most of those people still have guns, and they're in some little shack north of Coeur d'Alene, waiting for whatever. But
The man. It's always the man. Who's the man?
Yeah.
The man's coming. We're ready. Okay,
Yeah.
good. I go, the man has F-15s and F-16s and F-18s. If they really want to take you out, you're dead.
Yeah. Nuclear weapons, right?
Nuclear
So you're
weapon.
not
They could
gonna-
easily take a neutron bomb will take half of Idaho out.
Yeah.
Okay, we're done.
Yeah.
End of militia. So I don't know. It's just an insane kind of the man. Paranoia runs
I
deep.
actually, Rick, the next trip I'm taking, I'm going to see my mother in Spokane, and I'm taking the train from Chicago to
Interesting.
Spokane
That should be nice.
in late July. So, yeah. And
Now, have you
my
ever
mo-
thought of taking the Canadian one that goes cross country and then just coming back down? 'Cause I heard it's gorgeous.
I did that. My sister and I did that in 2017.
Did you like it?
In August. We started in Toronto and took the Canadian all the way to Vancouver. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Anybody who's watching this, if they want scenery, luxury, a different perspective on the world, 3 nights and 4 days, looking at all kinds of possible geography, wildlife, nature. It's just amazing. It's well worth it.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful.
Yeah. And you make, if you're on a train for 4 days, either you make really, really vicious enemies because you're with these people, or very, very good friends. And we made some very good friends from Toronto. Actually, an English couple that are in Toronto for 5-year contract running a cultural festival. Just the most charming people in the world, and we would have champagne in the bar car at 5 o'clock, and then go off to dinner in the diner, and then watch the sunset and the stars come out from the dome car.
Oh,
so
nice.
This is my commercial for Via Rail's Canadian train number 1.
Great. Right? That sounds great. Well, you know what? We are actually way out of time. It was good.
Oh my gosh.
And we've gone for
to go
40.
Another hour,
we did
so there's
46.
things I want to ask Susan and whatever. So
we have to come back.
All right.
Oh, definitely.
You have to come back. And I don't know if we have a guest next week, so if you're available, we could bring you back for part 2.
Okay. I always tell people, don't offer me food unless you want me to take it, because I will not be one of those, no, I can't possibly take you up on your invitation.
That's fine. Susan, do we have a guest next week?
I don't know if we're rescheduling Susan Eaton for the Antarctica.
Harold, do you know when that's rescheduled?
She hasn't got back to me yet.
Tell you what, if we'll schedule you then.
Okay.
We're having too much fun. We got to keep this up.
Yeah.
So we'll send you an invite for next week. Yeah. That'll be wonderful. And you're right. There's a lot we haven't even talked about today, and we've gone almost an hour.
Well, that's amazing.
Not bad for a half-hour show.
Time flies when you're having fun, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it is fun. So anyway, well, we appreciate you coming on to the show. We'll see you next week again, and we can continue this and get a little bit more into some things. We're touching some things kind of at a high level, and there's so much more that there's a lot of stuff going on.
I wanted to discuss a little comparative pandemic policy. That's kind of one of the things I've been looking at. Susan kind of already alluded to it, that you can't really talk economics, micro or macro these days, without talking about what are all the effects of the pandemic, short-term, long-term, and the various policies in various countries.
That's true.
What seemed to work and what doesn't work, kind of.
Yeah. Well, the Germans just came out with their high-level study of the whole pandemic and called it a hoax. They said this is the German government. They said this was a total hoax. And I think Harold made a comment that they sent China a multi-billion-dollar bill for how much it costs for this. So I don't know if that was true or not. That could have been hearsay, but very interesting. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about that. So that'll be good. Well, we'll see you then next week for part 2.
Everything's so complicated and contradictory, too. So it's hard to get a sense of how to plan or anything.
I know. That's the hardest part.
There aren't easy answers.
No, and planning is tough right now in a lot of ways. Anyway, well, we're glad you came on today. We'll see you next week for part 2. And Susan, as always, a pleasure. And if you're watching the show, please subscribe, give us feedback, whatever. If you want to get a hold of Ed, we'll put his information down below so you can talk to him or even take one of his classes. You'll enjoy it. He's got classes on the great courses, by the way, and they're really good. So definitely take some of the classes, and we will see you all next week. Thanks. Have a good one, everyone.
All right. Bye, Rick. Bye, Susan.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.